On today's episode, I would love to talk about the number one way you can stand out as an applicant when trying to switch to a tech career. It's probably not what you think, and it's a lot more easy to achieve than you would ever imagine. So let's chat about that. Welcome to How to Switch to a Tech Career in Your 30s and 40s. It's the podcast where we love to get excited and down to brass tacks, talking about the real things that help you move the needle when you switch from any other career into a high-tech or IT career. And this is where we're going to discuss the real hints, tips, tricks, and the methods and the protocol that help you switch into a real tech career. So welcome. Welcome again. This episode today will be something that may surprise you, may get you a little bit more excited, but I have a lot of experience, not just in tech. That's not to brag. That's something that I'm given, and I'm honored to do that. By the grace of God, I am what I am, as the Apostle Paul said. But I not only have experience in tech, but I also have experience helping people get into tech. And it's been a very interesting time since 2020. And now this is being recorded the end of 2024, December now. Since 2020, when the pandemic came, you guys remember that? I jumped in and I started to help people figure out their course and their journey into a tech career, or to help them level up. And some of them leveled up very quickly if they were already in tech. Some of them took merely weeks after I talked to them. And some of them never did anything at all with what I gave them. And I think that was the big distinction. And then, of course, you've got other people who, say they want help, and then they just don't even, they're not even courageous enough to ask for it. They will fill out some form I have, but they'll just not move forward. And that's the source of data that I'm just stunned by. And I think it has to do with an endemic that we're dealing with here in America. And that is a lack of courage and a lack of effort from that courage. So let me give you some data. And this is off the top of my head and probably off some experience I've had even this week, trying to help some people switch into a tech career. But the data shows in my experience, so this is a little bit subjective, but I do have a sample size of close to probably 400 people at this point who've reached out for help. It's not a super large sample size, but it's pretty big. And let me give you a preface about this data before I just dump in. But the people that I help, the people that I even start to collect this data from, are people who believe they're stuck, and they see either my post on Reddit or a Facebook ad or this podcast here, and they reach out through email. It's usually one of those three sources. It could be Instagram, but I'm not really on IG yet. So this data is coming from a sample size of people who say they're stuck. Okay? And they say that they need help. And we know from political polls, and we know from like Gallup polls, and we know from like George Barna Institute does religious polls. We know that people don't really say what they say what they think they're supposed to say in a poll. And that is possibly what's going on here. But from the data that I have, it would appear that one of the easiest and quickest ways to stand out as an applicant is simply to keep your appointments and answer questions without without fear, to have the courage to show up for appointments where someone's going to help you. It takes a lot. And so a lot of the people that uh, have signed up for me to help them, and what I do is I have just a 30-minute help session. And if you're on my website, tekleed.com, you may see some of those. I think I've pasted a bunch of those quote unquote testimonials where I've just helped people in 30 minutes. But so many people just don't even show up for those calls, guys. And if you show up for the call, it's an indication that, you're going to show up for other calls. And so I would imagine, by some deduction here, um, maybe that's the wrong logical term, but I would imagine, if I would uh, take my sample size of 400 people I've helped, and of course the hundreds that have not, possibly hundreds, maybe 200, it didn't even show up for a call. What if I would put that across all the data and all the people who are trying to either level up or get a tech job again, or get their very first tech job? I would imagine that a ton of people just give up. They just give up. And by giving up, it could be they just stop trying. They never start trying. They want to get into a tech career. They say they want to, but they never try. It takes them years to try. Or even after they make that very first step of trying, of just, Googling or asking ChatGPT, what should I do if I want to switch to tech? They will secure a source of help, and they won't even follow through. Maybe, they'll sign up for a course and they won't even start it, or they'll start it, they don't finish. Or even the next level would be they finish the course, but then they don't have the confidence and courage to move forward and apply for positions. And maybe even after that, they apply for positions and they get discouraged and burned out. And after 50 applications, they just stop. So I know that feeling of being stuck. And I want to tell you, the number one way to stick out is to just have the courage to keep your word. The courage to keep your word, even when you don't feel like it. And that, my friends, it's an anomaly these days. I don't know why I say these days. That's showing my age. I think it's always been an anomaly. You become someone who stands out. You become someone whose, resume actually gets into a pile instead of just being lost in a pile. It's in the pile. That's how you start to win. That's how you start to make an impact, is when you're on time or early. You're showing interest and excitement for what you're going to do, and hiring managers love it. They may not say they love it, but today, when you ghost someone, when you're in a conversation, you don't respond for a day, if you're really, let me give you an example. I've had people fill out my form to have me help them. And I do this to filter out people who don't even want to fill out a form, but they think that they're super urgent about getting into a tech position. So I have them fill out a form. It probably takes 4 minutes, maybe 3. And on the form, I have, what's your level of urgency? And so almost everyone says ASAP, they need to get into a tech job, or urgent, they need to get into a tech job. I had one person say mid this past week. And, I don't know why, I think that person is actually realizing that it's not an overnight transition to a tech position. But these people who are urgent and ASAP, there's 2 classes of them. One, the type of people who show up early to our calls. And 2, the type of people who just skip the call with me. They even say that they want to have a call with me. And so I'm not, I ask, would it be helpful to have a call? Just because if they think it'll be helpful, they'll probably want to have a call and I can help them. But I'm telling you, uh, it's an anomaly to show up early for the call. So I want to encourage you, if you're the type of person who's not going to keep your appointments, then now's the time to change that and to realize that the reason you're stuck, the reason you feel like there's a doom scroll of YouTube or Coursera, or every 6 months you add another $20 course to go through and a certification that costs you $50 and all of these things that are just, pennies compared to the effort it takes to get into a tech job and to secure your first tech job. I would encourage you to say, look, the reason I'm in that doom loop is because I have not been a person of integrity, keeping my appointments and keeping my word, even to myself. So let me encourage you to reach out for help to people. Doesn't have to be me. But when you reach out, get into the conversation and make an impact on the person you reach out to. Many programmers are the type of people that love to sit behind screens and not meet anyone in person. And that's a personality trait. And that's okay. But I want to encourage you, even behind your screen, to reach out to someone. You have my information, or someone on LinkedIn, or the provider of a course on Coursera, or, anyone else that you think is in tech and could help you. And when you reach out, show some excitement and show some interest, and show that there's a little bit of urgency in the words you use, and expect things from that person. Expect them to help you. Don't be demanding, but don't just sit back and say, well, nothing's going to ever happen. I might as well not reach out, because whenever I reach out, things don't happen. You have to keep trying. And I don't mean just doing the same thing you've done. I mean, be intentional. Increase the level of intention. Increase the level of integrity. And I think you're going to see more results. Now, that's a very, very soft skill you can learn, and anyone can. And you might think, well, everyone does that better than me. Well, that's false. So there are probably people who don't do the follow-up that you're doing right now, but even if you increase it, well, how much more will you stand out to employers? So get some practice of keeping your word and being a person of integrity just with appointments. I think you're going to stand out. Now, back to my data. There are certain people who, in the calls that I've been having, show interest in getting into tech, but they just are stuck. They don't know what to do next. And that's my favorite kind of student, absolutely, is because they are so dedicated and they're willing to follow instruction. And yet they just don't have the experience to know what comes next in their journey into tech. And so if you have that qualification, I think that anyone out there who is going to be helping you will be excited to help you and encouraged to be able to teach you and lead you along the path. So just increase your excitement level and don't worry about not having all the answers, because you know that not everyone has all the answers, and you never will. Even when you apply for a tech position and you look at those requirements, nobody meets 100% of all the requirements. And if they do, I always say this, they're probably going to be told they're overqualified, because where's the challenge in that? So if you were to hire someone to create a website for you, for example, Would you want someone who's the top expert if you're on a budget? Or would you be willing to take someone who is half the price and is but still checks most of the boxes? Let's say that they don't have the most expensive equipment to fix your pipe or to repair the faucet, but they do have the equipment. You'd still probably save a little money and be willing to take that risk. And so that's a little bit like the situation of you applying for a job and thinking, well, I have to know everything that they're going to require of me, everything that they list. That's just not true. So remember, people are people, and people have every person has a unique background. And so companies are looking for, yes, someone to check the boxes, and yes, someone who's going to be able to do the work in general. But they're also looking for people who are able to learn, because as soon as you get hired, you will be asked to do some things that probably weren't on that list in the job requisition on Indeed. Okay? So take some confidence that the number one skill to make yourself stand out right now is being a person of integrity, of character, who is able to keep promises, especially and primarily to your appointments. So, if that's too basic for you, it's possible that you're past this level and you need to start thinking about getting more help. But if that's an epiphany to you to be on time and especially early to appointments, then there you go. You're going to have some more success, and you'll be amazed at how people respond to you a little bit differently if you show excitement and charisma and get to your meetings on time. I hope this has been helpful. I want to give you a foreshadowing of what the next episode will probably be like. I'm going to have someone who's really good at showing up on time on this podcast. It's my first quote unquote live guest. We will do this live, but it'll be published afterward, of course. So I look forward to sharing that guest with you next week, and I won't spill any beans about it. I'll let you show up. The handful of listeners I have will be very blessed and benefited by what this guest has to say. All right, thanks for joining, and I hope you have a good rest of the day. And if you want more information, look down in the show notes or just email me info@tekleed.com. How to Switch to a Tech Career in Your 30s and 40s is the podcast that tries to help you switch into a tech career, no matter what your background is, give you some support and some encouragement along the way. Now, if you're stuck and you need some help, give me an email at info@tekleed.com, info@tekleed.com, all spelled wrong. Until next time, my name is Brooks Haynes, and I've been your host today, and I thank you for listening. From the shores of the Vermilion River in southeastern Minnesota, have a good day.